The test stopped 1673, and this is James II. This is James II. Denying the Catholic doctrine of transubstantiation. And of course, you have the test match in the cricket. You have the test match. So cricket. Interesting spelling of the cricket. In this test cricket, right? Yeah, 3 sessions for 2 hours each, right? So that's 33, and then 42, right? So obviously the tea breaks, the break for tea. So you know what this cricket's about. Beginning in the late 16th century, right? So around about the same time as this society, whole society was formed. See, the whole society was formed around about this time. The court of King James, as they call it, and all that. And we're called cutter, right? So we've got the cutter again, by British drama critic Kenneth Tynan. See, the T. Cricket came to India in the 1721, in the early 1700s. East India Company, East Indian Tea Company. And as we see, there's over 20 million Catholics in India, right? Sort of like the Catholicism, saying, in the East, and like all the associated stuff. Tea drinking stuff in it. See how a lot of religions share these hats. See? These hats. So there's a bit more to it than just simple explanation. Because they are sharing these same hats. Different religions and that. And this is interesting. The first coming of the Messiah, and these are waiting for the second coming. Yeah. Creating a church that would serve as its fulfillment and be open to people of all races. So we have another James here, this time James V. And his stepfather was Archibald Douglas, the 6th Earl of Angus. Right? And according to this, the young king's stepfather took custody of James and held him prisoner for 3 years. So that's 3 6s. And there's a 6 and a 7. Yeah. And apparently there's this book, right, The Sword and the Cross, about James's kingship. This is James V, King of Scots. And you see this, like, And the reason I'm looking at this stuff, right, is because when you have the CH, right, you have the CH in Christ, right? So if you separate the CH, right, you're left with a wrist, right? The wrist, right, and developing a supple wrist for bowing. This is the day with sword practicing broadsword. The object of the moulinet or the moulineer is to supple the wrist and give it strength to manage the sword to make and parry a cut quickly, and should therefore be frequently practiced. Right? The broadsword. This is from Principles of Squad Instruction for the Broadsword by Swordmaster of the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis. They have the wrist and sword fencing. Right? And you have here the 12 cuts, right? Yeah, and fencing, parry positions, and so the wrist is certainly an important part in the sword fencing type of thing. Right? The wrist. And you have this, right? This is basically the sword shape. Right? It's basically a sword. Of course, you have this type of thing, right, which is sword in the stone, which is the type of idea about the sword being, stuck into the ground, so it can't be used. See, it's out of action type of thing. The sword, see, it's rendered useless by this action of putting it into the ground and that. And of course, you have the story about the kid or whatever pulling it out, and thus bringing the sword back into life and all that. Like ideas of a live blade type of thing, a live blade, see, dead and live, right? So Japanese bokken, it didn't feature an actual live blade, right? It's like a dead blade. It's in a practice sword, say a practice weapon. Practice swords or wasters. Eh? It forms without the dangers of a live blade, right? And when you have the wrist, right? The wrist, you have the limp wrist, right? Obviously, you know what a limp wrist is. There's a limp wrist in the semi-automatic pistol shooters, right? But you obviously know what a limp wrist is, right? Mental exercise for stretching the wrists. Hold your arms out in a T position. The 7 best exercises. You have a wrist, right? You stir. Yeah, you stir with your wrist. You stir Scottish porridge. The wooden spurtle. Idea of a porridge lovers. You stir porridge, and remember the 3 witches in Macbeth? Macbeth, the TH, the weird sisters. 3 witches Freemasons. Of course, Mac is the sun, as we know. And Bethlehem is the house of bread. So, yeah, with a prophecy that he shall generate a line of kings. We know how to like the bread and the bacon and the things like that. The house of bread. And of course, bread's money in it, and the Bankur. Bankur. Three wise men. Three gifts underlying the Messiah's offices as prophet, priest, and king. The star of Bethlehem. Bethlehem, house of bread. A house of bread. A house. It's buck house. Remember how a buck is an American dollar, in it? Buck house. House of bread, buck house. It's the administrative headquarters. The administrative eunuchs type of thing. Administrative headquarters of the monarch. Yeah, certainly fits the description of the house of bread. Doesn't it? Certainly a house of bread, alright. There's the east front. Administrative headquarters. Focal point for royal hospitality. National rejoicing and mourning. Townhouse built for the Duke of Buckingham. See the limp wrist? And there it is, the limp wrist. Huh? The limp wrist. And the obviously the free. John Inman. Of course, John Inman used to popularise the I'm free, didn't he? In 1977,